Hello everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to our architecture tour of Skyrim. So we've been through all the hold capitals, right? So that's all the cities. Now, in this video, I want to look at some of the old Nordic architecture. And by that I mean some of the ruins and some other bits and pieces. So if you remember, the city of Windhelm is essentially old Nordic architecture. It's an old city, and it was built in that particular style. But we want to look at some more examples of this, so we're going to go back to Bleak Falls Barrow. So remember at the start of the game, we briefly looked at the outside of this ruin. So the ruin we saw as we walked down the path from Helgen to Whiterun. So we saw this barrow in the distance, right? This one, remember this? So let's take a closer look at this stuff, because it does bear some examination. So look at the size of these rocks. So this is what in the real world would be called Cyclopean masonry. Cyclopean being Cyclops. So the old Greeks. So this is a lot of. So a Cyclops is like a Greek fictional monster, a mythical monster. And according to the Greek myths, Cyclops were giants. And we suspect that they thought the Cyclops were giants because they found elephant bones. And elephants, if you look at an elephant's skull, they look like they have a hole in the forehead. So it looks like they have a single giant eye in the middle of their giant head. And so it is speculated that the idea of a giant Cyclops came from elephant bones that the Greeks found, and they don't realize that they were elephants, and they thought they were giants, and so they would arrange the elephant skeleton into something resembling a person that stands up on 2 feet. And they thought that there's like a race of giants somewhere in the world, and they call them Cyclopses because they have a single eye in the middle of their skull, which is not actually the eye socket of the elephant. That's like where the trunk of the elephant comes out of their heads. So that's the story. And so Cyclopean architecture means really architecture that appears to have been built by giants. And they call it that because of the massive blocks of stone that it's made out of. So you see like these massive blocks of stone. It's like, well, actually, did the Greeks say this? I think they did. But definitely later on in the Dark Ages and afterwards in the Renaissance, like they would look back at the old like Egyptian and Roman ruins, and often there'll be these massive blocks of stone, especially if you've seen pictures of the pyramids, for example. It's a pyramid. I mean, it's a giant pyramid, but it's made out of giant blocks of stone like this. Like look at this stuff. So it's a massive block of stone here, massive block of stone here, and so there's all this kind of old, really, really ancient architecture with giant blocks of stone, and they thought, well, how could anyone manage to pick up a block of stone and put it in place? I mean, they must have been giants, right? So the people they didn't really understand engineering, so they figured that, well, giants must have built these structures, and so they call it Cyclopean architecture because of the giant blocks of stone. So it's a pretty fanciful way to come up with the name. Of course, in reality, what the Egyptians and the Romans and the Greeks did, of course, was they had a lot of people with pulleys and sleds and various engineering devices, and basically a lot of slaves to kind of pull the giant blocks of stone into place. So basically, it's people power. It's a lot of people kind of working together with some engineering equipment. But for a while in the Dark Ages, like people forgot their engineering capabilities during that time, and so they couldn't figure it out. So here, like these like massive stone blocks kind of harken back to that. But instead of cyclopses, what we have are dragons. So these structures were built at a time when there were a lot of dragons in Skyrim, and the dragons kind of ruled over Skyrim. And the dragon priests were people who served under the dragons, and then they controlled the population. So the human population were basically enslaved by the dragons. And so these giant blocks of stone either were built by dragons, or they were built using magic, or they were built by a lot of slaves, basically. And so the giant blocks of stone in the game, I guess in a way references those ancient Egyptian and Greek and Roman architecture examples where there's like giant blocks of stone that doesn't seem possible for people to lift, but actually if you have some engineering equipment you could do it. Whereas, in comparison to like a city in Solitude, for example, where everything is in the small blocks, I mean, they were still kind of pretty big blocks, but the bricks or the stone blocks were basically small enough that a person or like a couple of people could lift it up and put it in place. And the same could be said, for example, for Riften and well, not Markup. So in a weird way, because of the Dark Ages going backwards, it's like the further, like in human history, the further back you go, the bigger the blocks of stones were, which is kind of weird if you think about it. But it's not actually that. It's that the smaller the bigger the blocks of stone, the more likely they're going to last. If there's an earthquake, well, if there's an earthquake, then all the arches will fall down, obviously. But at least the blocks of stone will survive. Whereas if it's a lot of small bits of stone, then there's an earthquake and the whole thing falls down, and then after a while the small bits of stone will wither away and you won't see it anymore. So it's not that there weren't buildings with small stones in the past, it's that all that stuff wouldn't last as long. And so if the stuff that really lasts for thousands of years, from the ancient Egyptians for example, would be the ones with the big blocks of stone. They're more likely to last a long time. And whereas building a tall structure with small stones is actually more difficult. Like, it's more technically challenging. I mean, it's in terms of labor, it's easier. In terms of like how much muscle you need to kind of lift a small stone in comparison to a large stone, it's easier that way. But in terms of building technology, actually getting a cathedral made of little bits of stone to stay in place is a lot more difficult than having like a Greek temple with giant blocks of stone to stay in place. Because the giant blocks of stone, there's just fewer gaps and fewer junctions between the blocks of stone, and therefore there's less movement in the stone. And so the stones, because they're so big, they sit more securely in place. And so actually, just in terms of engineering technology, getting a tall structure made of little bits of stone is much more difficult than getting a tall structure made of giant blocks of stone, if that makes sense. So I mean, actually the small stone buildings is technically more advanced, but then in terms of muscle power, it takes less muscle power to get that done than the old buildings. So there's a strange interaction between labor and technology and architectural history. But all of that is not really relevant in the game, because in the game, this old architecture and even the blocks of stone in in Windhelm, they're also rather large, and it's supposed to harken back to a time when dragons would have built this stuff, or maybe they would have helped in building this stuff. Alright, let's go inside. So this is like old Nordic architecture, back from the time when they were dragon priests. And in fact, you can kind of see the dragon motif here. Although all the dragon motifs are a little bit abstract and weird. So you can never be sure if it's actually a dragon or like a really ugly snake. Right, is it an ugly snake or a dragon? I can't tell. Let's go inside and we'll just have a look at the typical old Nordic ruin. Often they are burrows, and they are where they keep dead people, and also bandits are here. Let me snipe some of them. Alright, wrecked. No scope. So yeah, so the giant cyclopean architecture continues on the inside. So again, like, you see how big these blocks are. You need a lot of people working together to lift these blocks up, right? Giant blocks of stone. So this, signifies that this architecture is older than the others. Although the way they use it to make arches in the game, it's not that plausible, because stuff like this would definitely fall down in an earthquake. And actually, like some of the Greek temples, sometimes if you go traveling to Greece and you kind of just go to the old temples, you just look at the old temples, you might think, wow, it's amazing, these temples have lasted such a long time. The reality is that they haven't lasted such a long time. Like, whenever there's an earthquake, the temples would actually fall down. But because the blocks of stone they're massive blocks of stone, you can just kind of pick up the blocks of stone and put it back together, because it's like a jigsaw puzzle. But because the blocks of stone are so big, it's pretty clear where they fit together. And so what happens is that the temples have actually fallen down multiple times in history, but today for the sake of serving tourism, they put the temples back together mostly. And so when you go to Greece today and you see the old temples and you say, hey, it's pretty well preserved. Yeah, and no, yes and no, because the temple, a lot of it is reconstructed out of the bits that have fallen down. so don't just assume that the temples have been standing there for thousands of years. The blocks of stone have been around for thousands of years, but it's been reassembled. A lot of them have been reassembled after earthquakes. So there you go. So, but this stuff though, I mean, I don't imagine there would be anyone reassembling this stuff in Skyrim. And in fact, some of this stuff is structurally bad. Like this, for example, there's no way this is structurally sound. That arch needs to continue to the ground, right? The fact that there's a gap there, and the fact that there's a gap there, that makes no sense at all. So some of this stuff is structurally wrong, just wrong. Like there's no way stone can stand up like that. Like once this thing breaks off, that whole arch would just fall down. So they've taken a few liberties with gravity in this game, but is it okay? Maybe it's not okay. Maybe it's. I mean, they've taken some artistic license with gravity. Maybe it's not okay. Maybe they're lying to us. I don't know. I don't know how to. I don't know how I feel about this. Anyway, so we come into this place, and there's an altar here already. A word of note: the dragon priests were into human sacrifice, I believe, or maybe like turning humans into zombies or things like that. The dragon priests themselves have turned into undead things. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of embalming and processing dead bodies, and a lot of them happen on these tables, these sorts of tables. So the old Nordic architecture, you'll kind of find this particular motif a lot. I don't know what that's supposed to be. Is that it could be a dragon, it could be a bird, it could be a snake. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. I think it's meant to be like an abstract dragon, but if the temple was built at a time when dragons were real, you would think that they would just make it look like a dragon. I mean, sometimes there's abstract animals. A famous example I can think of is lions. The lion motif in China. So in China, lions are mythical animals, and like you sometimes see the lion dances, where like at New Year's you have a couple of people kind of dressed up as a quote unquote lion, kind of jumping around and doing acrobatics. But the lions are very abstract, and they don't look anything like a real lion. Well, that's because there haven't been lions in China for thousands of years, because they used to be lions in China, but you know, there's a lot of people in China now, and lions have gone extinct in China. So like you know, there's a cultural memory of lions, but it's become a mythical beast that don't really exist, and their appearance have kind of transformed into these kind of abstract things that are vaguely like lions, but they're not anything like real lions. It's kind of what this feels like. It's like an abstract dragon. Imagine, like, if thousands of years ago there were dragons, and people have descriptions of real dragons, and then the dragons go extinct for thousands of years. And so over the generations, people, so each parent will tell their children about dragons. But then after several centuries, no one's ever seen a dragon that's still alive, and so they have this description of the appearance of the dragon, but they've never seen a real one. So when they make a carving that they think is a dragon, it kind of is a dragon, but it also looks nothing like a dragon. It's like how lions are in China. It's like no one's ever, like, well, I mean, now we know that there are lions in Africa, so now we know what they actually look like. But for hundreds of years, for thousands of years in China, no one's ever seen a lion, even though there's like a cultural memory of a creature called a lion that looks vaguely like this. And so they make these kind of lion costumes. Actually, I can look it up. Alright, diversion. I'm going to divert away from Skyrim. So if we go to lion dance, like this stuff. So, okay, this is better. So this is what lions became in the Chinese cultural memory, and you can see. I mean, it's vaguely cat-like. I mean, it's a thing with teeth. I mean, they got the teeth, and they have like eyes, and it's furry, and I don't know what that is. So this is so I mean, like, you know, in the very distant past there have been lions in China, but there haven't been lions in China for so long, and yet people still remember them, and they become part of the mythology of the place. And so they become like this. So like, if a lion can be like this, then you might imagine a dragon might become like this over many centuries. But it doesn't really make sense here because presumably they carved this at a time when real dragons exist. So this sort of kind of abstract transformation of a real thing into a myth, it does happen in the real world, and it's actually very interesting when it happens in the real world. And I think they're trying to reference that in the game, and I think that is actually supposed to be a dragon. And like all these things, like every time, okay, that's definitely a dragon. You can see that. That's the eye, and then there's the open mouth. And so this kind of hook motif is what the dragons have turned into, and I think that's an eye, and that's the mouth, I think. So some of them look more like dragons than the others. Like this one, I think it's meant to be a dragon. So there's the eye, and then there's like the mouth, or is that the horn? And is that the... I can't tell. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, but it's like an abstract dragon. And yeah, so dragon priest and the dragon cult, as it was known, the people who served the dragons. And you can see it in all the bits and pieces. So in this stuff, like, there's a dragon there. So there's the eye, there's the nose, there's the hook mouth, and then maybe there's horns up there. So yeah, there's dragon motifs everywhere, but they all look slightly different, and none of them look exactly like a dragon, which is the funniest part. That none of them actually look exactly like a dragon, so they're all different, but they're all wrong. Alright, so this is, I don't know what this is, but I guess it's like an antechamber. I mean, there's an altar here, so I guess something happened here. I don't know what happened here though. Anyway, let's push further in. So in terms of gameplay, all of these spaces are corridors and rooms. And corridors and rooms is a phrase I use to describe an arrangement of spaces where you have a room followed by a corridor that leads to the next room. And then from that, on the other side of that room, there's another corridor. And then that corridor leads to a third room. So it's just gonna corridor and room one after the other. And so that was a room. This is a corridor. And then we go down the corridor. I mean, there's a kind of a side corridor, but not really. Like, it ends very quickly. And then we go down the corridor, and eventually we're gonna come to another room. Up front? Okay. Not quite. It's a long corridor. Oh, I guess we should look at the furniture and the furnishings. So there's like the giant blocks of stone, but it's also kind of rough, I suppose, and all the spider webs too. So I suppose this is supposed to, well, it does indicate how old this place is, and the fact that the floors have, you know, there's vines overgrowing the place, and the floor is uneven. So it looks old, right? It looks old, and it is supposed to be old. So that's correct. So the dragon priest furniture looks like that. So that's like a little shelf. There's urns, and that's like a shelf, and that's a light, it's a fire. All right, just so you can get used to the furnishings. This corridor is really long. Is that a bandit? I think it is. Yep, bandit outlaw. That fire should probably burn those roots, but those roots are fireproof. Alright, so now we come to a room. There you go. And a room. So it's called. So you got a room, a long corridor, and a second room. So and this is, I mean, they do it like this because they want to keep the space linear. So there's, in a lot of games, there's two types of spaces, right? There's the open areas. So all the cities that we've been in so far is like open world areas where there's buildings and streets, and everything is kind of complicated, and you can go anywhere. So everything is just a field condition, where you can go anywhere you like, anywhere you can walk and get to. And then we get to a dungeon, and it becomes a linear configuration where you go through the space in a very sequential manner. Like, if there's a room, you go through a corridor into another room, through another corridor into another room, and so there's just one line. And they do this because they want to make this less complicated. So in the open field condition, you can explore. Whereas here, it's combat and puzzles. We just kind of killed a few people, and now we have a puzzle. And so they want to arrange the combat and the puzzle in a specific sequence, right? And so they kind of arrange the whole space in this linear way. I mean, corridors and rooms, I say it in a slightly condescending manner because it's not very interesting. But I also understand that they want to do this to make sure that you experience the space in a particular sequence, especially when there's puzzles involved. They want to make sure that you solve one puzzle before you go to the next room, and then you solve that puzzle and you go to the next room, and then maybe there's a boss fight. They want to make sure you fight the boss before you get to the next room. And so in order to make sure you experience things in a certain sequence, they have to use corridors and rooms, and they have to make everything linear. So, I mean, like spatially, it's kind of dumb, but then you can't really avoid it if you want to control how a player experiences a dungeon, right? So we want a snake, snake, and whale. This is the puzzle. Let me just do this. Snake, snake, and whale. So this is a minor puzzle, not that complicated. The architecture, not sure what that wooden framing is about. It doesn't seem necessary. The stone should hold itself up. Yeah, I'm not sure what that wooden framing is supposed to do. And also, I'm not sure it should have survived for thousands of years. Like timber, without maintenance, timber, if it lasts several decades, you're doing pretty well. Yeah, I'm not sure if it should survive several thousand years. Alright, let's keep moving forward. So we continue to see the Cyclopean architecture, although there are bits with smaller bits of stone in between, so I'm not sure how to feel about that. I mean, there's big bits of stone and there's small bits of stone. I don't know if it means it was like repaired at a later date. It could be what it means is that, you know, there's some kind of wear and tear over time, and imagine like if a giant block of stone kind of cracked open and broke off, then you fill the gaps with smaller bits of stone. That might be what it means. Not sure though. It's possible. It's possible. Tables and chairs and loot. So there's burial urns and soul gems because of necromancy. Alright, let's go down. And like stuff like this, a spiral staircase made of wood. I mean, there's no way a spiral staircase like this would last for several thousand years. So I'm not sure what to make of that. Just punch these skeevers. There you go. There's one more. Where is it? Yeah, there's no way a staircase like this would last several thousand years. So either someone has rebuilt this recently, or it's just wrong. A lot of spiders here, look at that, a lot of spider webs. So again, the dragon motif all over the place. Kind of see the dragon motif there. It's kind of cool though, isn't it? Like the handles are made in the shapes of dragons. That's pretty cool. And if you look at a lot of artifacts from around the world, you'll see similar things from many different cultures. You know, just beyond the practical. Like whenever you get like decorative elements in anything, it's very interesting. Like, you know, old Chinese stuff, and you know, every culture, every single culture. Just looking at their bowls and cups and dishes are really interesting. Looking at the decorations, like their books and paintings and tapestries, and so I guess they've kind of, the people at Bethesda have made up an entire fictional culture, and they've even designed their lamps and their tables and chairs and their furniture and their utensils. You know, so it's quite good. I mean, you can tell they've spent a lot of time on this stuff. You know, and patterns like this, vaguely prehistoric patterns. I don't know what it's supposed to symbolize though. It looks a little bit like a giant fingerprint, but I don't think that's what it's supposed to be. You know, often the motifs will be related to something about the culture. For example, like sometimes like an ocean-going culture, like I think the Phoenicians had like a fish motif, because the Phoenicians were great sailors around the Mediterranean in their time, and there'd be like a fish motif. I think, if I remember right. The Chinese have a dragon motif for some reason, because the Chinese believe they're descended from dragons. It's a little strange if you think about it, but so the Chinese have a dragon motif. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. What else? So, I can't really think of any other cultures off the top of my head. The Egyptians have their hieroglyphics, but that's more complicated. I mean, there's the sun motif. I guess the sun motif makes sense for the Egyptians because they live in a desert and it's always sunny. What other motifs are there? Oh, whales? I think some of the cultures have whale motifs. Especially, I think the Inuits have a whale motif, or is that... maybe that's wrong. So yeah, so a lot of these cultures, like their motifs depend on where they live. And what they do with their spare time, or what they do for a living even. Like if they go whaling for a living, then they have whale motifs. I mean, that's not too surprising, right? Doesn't really explain the dragon motif in China though, does it? Because there's no real dragons in China, you know what I mean? So that's a bit weird. Anyway, so I mean, when we look at like the dragon motifs, makes sense because this is dragon cult, right? They worship dragons. Not too sure about the other shapes. So a spider has taken over this room. So again, we come through a corridor into another room where there's a boss fight. Kind of. I mean, the spider's pretty weak. But with boss fight, and then we continue through another corridor into the next room. Okay, everything covered in spider webs. Can't see a thing. So now we have like smaller bits of stone. I don't know what to make of this. So the Cyclopean architecture has... well, I mean, there's bits of stone here, but then we come back to this place and it's back to the Cyclopean stuff. I think it's just textures. I don't think they thought too closely about that. Doesn't matter too much. Alright, let's continue forward. Oh, and what is this space? Look, there's chairs, right? There's chairs. But I don't know what they would be sitting here to do. Because I don't know what that is. What is this? There's little alcoves to hold the urns, I think. I can't tell what this is used for. Okay, there's little alcove things for the bowls. This is kind of weird. Like you can't really tell what it's used for, and I think it's deliberate, right? They're trying to deliberately make it kind of mysterious and inexplicable. What would they have used this space for? I don't know. I mean, the seating. I don't know what's going on here. Some of the spaces are kind of obvious, but you notice there's no bedrooms, for example. There's no dining rooms, and I think they deliberately make that to make it seem more alien and make it seem more strange. Because if you walk into like someone's bedroom, then it's like, oh, it's pretty familiar, it's a bedroom. Or if you walk into like a classroom, well, oh, it's a classroom, that's pretty familiar. Then you feel a connection to it, right? Because you can understand what it is. Whereas if you have a space like this and you have no idea what this is supposed to do, then everything feels weird, right? You don't feel safe, you don't feel connected to it, and it just feels odd and wrong. Although here you know what this is. This is for dead people. In fact, if we walk forward, oh, there's a dead person. So this is a tomb, presumably. Well, I mean, if there's a tomb here, you might say, well, maybe this is where they embalm people. I mean, it would make sense because they would put the organs in the urns, I guess, or put the ashes in the urns or whatever it is. And there might be like bowls to hold your blood and your guts. I mean, but if this is where you embalm people, I don't understand where you put the body. I mean, usually in a place where you embalm people, you have a table where you put the body and then you start cutting up the parts and putting them into the urns. But I don't like that's how they mummify people. But you need a place to put the body, whereas I don't see a table to put the body. So this is kind of weird. So I don't know what that's about. Or maybe this is like a ceremonial place. Was there an embalming place further back? Maybe this is no. I can't tell. I can't really tell. So there's bits and pieces, but I can't seem to make them fit together in my mind. Anyway, so further ahead is a is a Hall of the Dead. So this is interesting because you can see how the modern Nords echo. Oh crap! I missed them. The modern Nords echo the ancient Nords. So the ancient Nords bury their dead in mausoleums under the ground, and the modern Nords also bury the dead in mausoleums under the ground. So that burial custom hasn't changed in thousands of years. So you see like these alcoves and the dead bodies are placed here. And whereas in the cities, when we go into the Hall of the Dead, in the cities you see like similar things. So that's interesting. Like the fact that that echoes through. How did I keep missing them? Like the fact that there's the culture. There's some parts of the culture that's consistent in the old architecture and the new architecture. That's really interesting, right? Well, I think it's interesting. So yeah, it's a kind of repeating patterns. And when the function follows the culture, it makes sense. It does actually make a sort of sense that the old Nords bury the dead this way, and the modern Nords also do so. I like that. It's logical. Like when you kind of see it, you think, well, that makes sense. I see how that works. This place is also kind of big because they want to fit a lot of enemies in here. Alright, let's keep going forward. And these collapsed tunnels... oh, is he dead already? He's dead already, never mind. So these collapsed tunnels really complicate things when you try to read the architecture because they imply there's other rooms back there. But you can't see what those rooms are, and so you don't really know if you're missing something in your reading of the architecture. Let's just run through. Ow. And then more corpses. So it's a giant tomb. I think this is meant to be a giant tomb. Yeah, it is a giant tomb. So there's more corpses. And they just keep going down. And more zombies trying to kill you. And more corpses. Right. So there's kind of dead people in alcoves. The architecture has changed a little bit, hasn't it? This stuff is rounder. It seems almost to be... so it's not blocks of stone anymore. Is it carved right out of the bedrock? Or... I can't tell how this is constructed. So this stuff, it's blocks of stone placed together. This is easy. And then this kind of blocks of stones arranged together. This, I can't see the cracks. It's almost like it's carved out of solid rock, doesn't it? Carved out of solid rock or somehow melted out of solid rock? Although no, there's blocks of stone there. So this arch, you can see like the seam there, the seam there. So this is like blocks of stone. But this looks like, that entire thing is one block of stone, and then that entire thing, and maybe that's what it is. It's just really big blocks of stone that's been like carved, possibly. Alright, let's keep moving forward. Wait. So more corridors, right? More corridors, and then we go into a cave. I'm not sure. Why would there be a cave here? I mean, that's caved in, so that used to be open. And then this is just a cave. I don't know why that would be the case. So we go through a cave. I mean, why would this not be like a... Why would they build this into a smooth wall, and they would build the other side into a smooth wall? But why would they not build this into a smooth wall as well? I don't get that. That doesn't seem to make sense. Like if someone else has excavated and broken through the wall, that would make sense. But this is not that. It's a doorway. Like there's a clear doorway there. So the ancient Nords who built this also built the doorway. Not sure how that works. Okay, there's a little underground river as well. There's also loot back there, but we're not gonna go down there. Alright, underground river, more dead people. Oh no, we have to go down there, never mind. So this is kind of interesting. So here this makes sense, right? So this used to be the path, but it's caved in. And so therefore now we have to take a side path. And the side path is not smoothed out because it's like a waterway. That makes sense. I don't know if that's meant to be collapsed or if it's meant to be like that. No, it can't be collapsed because the doorway is not covered by the collapse. It kind of makes sense that it kind of doesn't. So like here, if this is like just a sewer, then okay, it's not clean, right? It's not kind of constructed with smooth walls. That makes sense. And then like if this cave is meant to be like a separate hidden natural cave, that makes sense. You know, all this water, and then we have like a sinkhole with a troll inside. Hey, look at that, that's cool. It's a sinkhole. Sinkholes, if you don't know, it's like when there's a cave underground and the cave grows to the point where the roof collapses, that's a sinkhole. And so then the roof collapses into the cave underneath. Although having said that, I don't know where it went to. I guess it went down there. And so then from the ground, it looks like the ground just kind of disappeared underneath you. It's actually because of the cave underneath and the thing fell into it. But the ground falls into the cave underneath. So that was a sinkhole, that looks pretty good. And then we make our way through more caves. Alright, and then we're back on the other side of the collapsed tunnel, right? Well, the tunnel goes further than that. So now we're back into the Nordic ruins. And eventually the corridors and rooms. And then there's this. Again, like there's no furniture, you can't really tell what the space is used for at all. I mean, yeah, there's no furniture. Like none of this stuff really makes sense as a city. Well, it does. So there's burial chambers. I think there's embalming places. Okay, I think it's a tomb. It's a tomb, and there's burial chambers and embalming facilities. And I think that's the extent of it. I don't think anyone ever lived down here. They didn't like sleep or work down here, really. Except for the people dealing with the dead people. And then this is more interesting, look at this space. So now we have... Alright, so there's coffins. That's cool. Shelves and tables, and then the chairs. I'm not sure what this is for. But there's shelves and tables for something. And there's a hole in the ground. This is very interesting spatially, but let me just try and figure out what the use of it were. I don't think it was an embalming table, unless... I mean, there's more tables and shelves. Alcoves, tables and shelves, and then... So there were coffins... or sarcophagi. Tables, chairs... I can't tell what exactly this is. Back to the dragon motifs. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what this stuff is. There's bits of furniture and there's hints of things, but you can't really tell for sure. Alright, and then this is a special feature. This is like a hall of stories. And these arches are kind of impressive. Like there's small bits of stone held with a giant block of keystone. So these arches are pretty impressive. And these, I think, are supposed to tell certain stories. I mean, they worship dragons. I don't know if these are dragon gods or actual human gods. But you can see that they're burying this guy. Right? What's going on there? I think that's meant to be a dragon priest, and so there's a couple of people carrying a dead person, and there's more people carrying another dead person. Is that a guy with a staff or a sword? And I don't know who that is. That might be one of the divines, but they shouldn't worship the divines, they should worship the dragons, I think. This is the same thing as the other side. And this is a different person or god carrying dragon motif staffs. I think we're supposed to be able to read who these people are. Maybe that's the dragon. Maybe every god has a corresponding dragon. Is it a bear? That's a bear, I think. Which would make that Kinnereth? I thought Kinnereth was a woman. So they're carrying the same person. These are women. Were these women on the other side as well? Okay, they were. Not sure about that one. Unless they're Daedra. Unless this is like her scene. One of the Daedra. I mean, if you don't know the lore of the Elder Scrolls, none of the stuff I'm saying will make sense. This is... I think this is Akatosh, the dragon god of time. Because he's got wings, right? And I can't tell what that is. Is that a wolf? Are those birds? Are those owls? That might be well, it's got like a crescent above his head. I can't tell what this stuff is. I think they're intended to be something vaguely recognizable. Is this guy holding fire? Is that fire? And what is that thing? Is that a dragon? I can't... I mean... they're supposed to mean something, but I can't tell exactly what they mean. But this is cool. So... Oh, and this... So to the player, this signifies that you're about to enter a boss fight. Because the pattern that is established in every single one of these tombs is that when you see this, you're in front of the boss fight. Because the final door... So this is a puzzle door too. We've already opened it. So there's a hall of stories, and then there's the puzzle room, or puzzle door, and then there's the boss fight. So this is a distinctive room, like with these carvings on it, that is in every single burrow, and it only is in front of the boss fight. And once you get used to it, every time you go into a burrow and you see this, you know you to prepare for a boss fight. So this is what it serves in terms of gameplay. Like it kind of makes the player anticipate and prepare for a boss fight. In terms of architecture, I can't tell what those carvings are, and the room itself is quite ordinary. It's just an empty hall, right? And then for some reason, the burial chamber itself is in a natural cave. I mean, the natural cave could have some significance. It's not uncommon for a natural cave to have cultural and historical significance. And so then this is the final chamber, and also the boss fight. I don't think the boss is here anymore. I think I killed it a long time ago. We'll see. Oh, boss is here. And dead. That's not the real boss, I don't think. I killed the real boss a long time ago. And the dragon wall is talking to me, but I've already gotten the stone. So that, I think, again, is supposed to be a motif of a dragon, but again, it doesn't look anything like a dragon. I find that so funny and interesting. So there's the dragon wall. The fact that it shouts at you all the time is significant to the story, and usually the boss is a dragon priest who lives inside the sarcophagus. Well, they don't live because they're undead, but they sleep in here until you walk into the room and you kill them. And then you loot and then you leave. That's pretty much it. So the basic layout in terms of gameplay of every one of these tombs is you go through a bunch of corridors and rooms, There's a few puzzles, there's a lot of zombies, maybe a few spiders. At the end you fight a boss, you grab the loot, and then you leave, like I'm doing now, through a cave. And the exit is usually through a hidden door. And you realize, once you got the other end of it, that you've gone around in a giant circle and you've come back to the start of the... Well, sometimes you go back to the start of the dungeon and sometimes you just exit. Here we're just gonna exit to Skyrim. And that's that. So that's the old Nordic architecture. I guess the main feature... Why? Why there's so many dragons? I guess the main feature that we can talk about is the Cyclopean architecture, right? The giant blocks of stone. Other than that, it's all very mysterious. You know, you can't tell for sure what the stuff is, except for the catacombs and the dead and the burial chambers. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Alright, so that's one example of old Nordic architecture. We are going to go to Labyrinthian next. And this is like a special... I mean, there's a lot of these old Nordic places. So we were in Bleak Falls Barrow. Some of the more notable ones, I think... No, not that one. Well, some of the more notable ones include... Arkwin Point is kind of amazing. What's another really cool one? I don't remember. Actually, shouldn't there be one? No, there was one near Markarth. Not that one. High Hrothgar Redoubt is also kind of amazing. Not that it matters anyway. I mean, if you've played the game before, then you would have visited these places. If you've never played the game before, then you should just buy the game and play it. Okay, next one we're gonna go to Labyrinthian, which is here. So Labyrinthian is supposed to be an old Nordic city that's been modified in later years by a powerful mage. So this place has a lot of history in the game.
Look!
Let me just clear the skies. Oh crap, I just fell off a cliff. And also let me... Which side am I on? I'm on the north side. This is probably not the best side. So there's two sides. So there's a mountain here, right? So that you can enter Labyrinthian from the north or from the south. You can actually like cross the mountains through Labyrinthian. And but crossing from this side, like you can tell that we're pretty high up on a cliff, and the staircase is all the way down there. So you don't really see. I mean, you see the wall. Let me just go down. You see the walls. Alright, so the staircase comes down here. Where are we? And the path goes this way. So it's like a treacherous, narrow mountain path. Halfway up the mountain. And then into the city. So Labyrinthian looks like that from the ground, I suppose. Where's the road? So this is the road. This is the main road. There's like a gap in the trees that goes both ways, right? And then Labyrinthian is just this kind of hidden thing at the side. Like you never see it all that clearly, and I don't think you're supposed to because it's a ruined city that people don't go to anymore. So even though this is like the path into Labyrinthian, it's not very well marked out. Anyway, the snow's back. So let me go back up there. And it's, I mean, there's city walls, so those are walls. So it's a really strongly defended city. And if you imagine in the old days, if this was defended against you, you have to fight against, you know, defenders. If you want to invade the city, I'm saying, you have to fight against defenders up a narrow mountain path before you, that's right, before you get into the city itself. I mean, look how narrow this is. And then you get up here, and then there's the city. So what should we do? Should we look first? No, we should. Let me just read first. And okay, let me read first. I mean, you don't see very much here, and also it's snowing. Can I wait for the snow to end? Or is the snow not gonna end at all? Let me just wait a bit. It would be nice if we can see this without all the snow. But we might not manage that. Oh, stopped. The snow stopped. Amazing. Uh, well, it's still there's less snow, slightly less snow. Alright, well, I'll take it. So let me go find my book and read about the Labyrinthian. What's it called? A minor maze, right? So that's a labyrinth. Shelodor is the maze. So Labyrinthian's modern notoriety was gained in the early part of the Third Era. Part of the Staff of Chaos was recovered from the Labyrinthian, which became instrumental in the overthrow of Jaeger Tharn, ending the Imperial Simulacrum. The site has since become embedded in the minds of all subjects of the Empire, and the ruins are occasionally visited by loyalist pilgrims retracing the steps of the Eternal Champion. So that refers to the things that happened in the first Elder Scrolls game, which is kind of obscure and not that important to us. The namesake of Labyrinthian is somewhat less commonly known, however. The foreboding ruins were originally built as a temple to the dragons. So again, like this is old Nordic architecture, right? So we're back in the dragon ages, the old dragon times. This grew into Bromjuna, a great city of that era. Bromjuna is believed by some to have been the capital of Skyrim at the height of the dragon cult's influence there. Little historical record exists as to verify or refute this, but it is known that the highest ranking priests of the cult met at Labyrinthian to discuss matters of ruling. So imagine this is the capital city of the dragon cult thousands of years ago. Bromjuna crumbled, however, along with the rest of the dragon cult, and the site lay abandoned for many years, a deteriorating reminder of those benighted days for the Nords. Not until the days of Shelodor would the ruins come into use again. Shelodor the Archmage was famous for his exploits in the First Era. Various tales tell of him battling Dwemer legions single-handedly, building the city of Winterhold with a whispered spell, stealing the secret of life from Akatosh, or constructing Labyrinthian himself. While many Shelodor legends are hyperbole or outright fabrication, we can discover some truth behind his involvement with Labyrinthian. Shelodor stood at the forefront of a movement to enact higher standards among mages, and to discourage spell use among the common castes. This effort is dubiously credited with the original organization and formation of the schools of magic, and the foundation of the college at Winterhold. Consistent with his mentality, Shelodor constructed his labyrinth deep within the ruins of Bromjuna to test new archmages. While navigating the destroyed city itself was not explicitly a part of the test, many candidates did not survive the journey, so the city itself is dangerous. Shelodor valued both academic knowledge as well as practical skill, and simply getting to the labyrinth required the latter. Shelodor's Labyrinthian is actually two intersecting mazes in an hourglass pattern. One maze could not be completed without exiting the other first, which makes the only existing instruction for the test especially mysterious. So this other stuff's not that interesting. Well, it is if you play the game, but not for us. Labyrinthian eventually ceased to be used and is regarded as a symbol of a more brutal age by modern institutions for magical studies. The ruins lay empty again, overrun with wild animals and avoided by travelers. The long history and legacy of this place, however, seems as likely to be erased from our minds, as the ruins themselves are likely to sink into the sea, which doesn't make any sense at all because we're nowhere near the ocean. So that's just wrong. Alright, so that is the city of Bromjuna and also Labyrinthian. So the city itself, heavily defended by city walls, as you can see. And inside, we see an actual vaguely city-like assemblage of the old Nordic architecture. Look at this. So we have minor shelters of incomprehensible purpose. We have the Cyclopean architecture, or Cyclopean masonry being used for the city walls and various things. We have strange towers and arches and sculptures of unknown purpose. Let me just walk around a little bit. We have giant staircases. Again, the massiveness makes everything seems a little bit alien, right? Like there's like massive staircase, and you're not too sure why it needs to be so massive. Also, trolls. This is a troll cave. Okay, that's not too interesting. So it's supposed to be a ruined city of the dragon cult, possibly the headquarters or the capital of the dragon cult. But we can't really tell much from what we see here. Let's see, what is this? So this is just the okay. This is the other side of the city. So there's kind of buildings. There's almost buildings. Like I mean, this is kind of like there's a roof, but I don't know what this is for. Let me come up here. And then there's like broken stuff that might have been buildings. Not that many foundations. Although at the same time, you know, this might be a city for dragons. Like this might not be a city for humans. Lost Volkieg. I don't remember if this is useful. This might be the back door to... Alright, well, I mean, this is a dungeon. We're not gonna go through there. So we have one of these old Nordic dungeons. I mean, architecturally it's very similar to the ones we were at before. Bleak Falls Barrow. So let me just stay on the outside and look around out here. There's a troll. I think there's a troll there, I can't tell. Yeah, so I mean there's not that many houses or buildings, if you see what I mean. Okay, this is the same one. So there's a city underneath the city. But we're not gonna go down there. So up here we have oh, it's Lost Volcanic Labyrinthian, I'm not sure. Anyway, let me just keep walking for a little bit. So if we come up here, I think this is this the other side of the city, or is this not? I mean, the massive staircases, it seems to imply that this is some sort of ceremonial space for a lot of people. You know, like this thing, it looks like a massive city square for a city of many thousands of people is what it looks like. Except that there's a city square, but there's no city. Like there's no, we don't see where the people live. We don't see, where are we going now? Okay, this is the other exit, I think. So if we keep walking this way, we get to the plains where Whiterun is. Alright, so we're going through the mountains, and this is actually the long way. Let me just make sure. So as we go through the city, we can come out the other side. And I think there's stairs here. Somewhere around here there should be stairs. Or maybe not. There's no stairs there. I thought there were... Maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe this is the wrong place. Anyway. Whiterun is there. There's the castle. There's Dragon Reach there. And there's the plains. Alright, let's go back to this. Let's go back to Labyrinthian. This might be the wrong direction. So the Labyrinthian, I guess it faces north more than south. Although, you know, there's a path through mountain valleys to the south, so that's kind of cool. I mean, this entryway is kind of good too. Like, you know, as you go through the valley, there's a giant arch, and then another giant arch, and then the city itself. So like, it really kind of signifies to you you're entering Labyrinthian, and like the massive, massive blocks of stone is quite impressive, right? Although, you know, something like this would never survive an earthquake. It just wouldn't survive an earthquake. So it really shouldn't be standing still unless somebody keeps repairing it. Alright, so that leads to Whiterun, kind of. Let me keep running around here. That's a cliff. Yeah, so I mean, this is it's supposed to be an ancient Nord city, an old Nord city. But I mean, and there's a city square, but there's no city, right? Like there's no living spaces. And I don't know what this is supposed to be. Oh, I know what this is supposed to be. This is quest related, but the thing you might want to note is that there's a shrine here. Is that a troll trying to kill me? There's a troll trying to kill me. Oops. Anyway, so this is like a shrine to dragon priests, which I thought I've done this before. Huh. This is weird. I swear I've done this before. Anyway. Let me just kill this troll. Oops. Oh no, I got it. So that's a thing that's game related, but I mean it's still not a house, right? It's not a place where people lived. This is... I mean... It might have been a house. Possibly. What is this? This is like a plinth. I mean, this might have been the foundations of a building. Possibly. I mean, there's even towers. I mean, this could have been the foundations of a building, maybe. And that's possible. And then, alright, and then there's more of these structures. So this is again, we've been here before. And then up here, there's ruins. Let me see. This might have been a fountain, or is a statue. And then there's more stairs, and then there's a giant ruin here. So either everybody lived underground, which I don't think they would have, I'm not sure, maybe they would have. Or maybe like all the actual houses were made of timber and they've rotted away over the years, that's possible. So this is a kind of a special door. Open Labyrinthian. I can still go in here. But this is not Labyrinthian, this is not the actual labyrinth. So again, we've got some dungeon things. So like an ancient Nord dungeon. The maze itself, I think, is actually the other side. Yeah, so like this is like a maybe city. It may be a city, but I don't see anything that actually makes this a city. I mean, it looks vaguely like a city square. It looks vaguely like a place where a city could be, but there's no actual buildings. Like there's no actual bedrooms. There's no actual shops. There's no, there's nothing recognizable. So you never know. You just don't know what this is. It's kind of maybe a city, possibly. And the architecture again, I mean, it looks pretty cool though, doesn't it? You know, just the fact that there's so much of it. There's a lot of maybe city, and just the fact that there's so much of it is pretty impressive. But you can't tell what any, like you can't read it at all. There's no way for you to understand what it actually is. But it looks kind of vaguely like a city, and that's kind of impressive. I think the Labyrinthian, the actual labyrinth, I think is in here. Let me see. So if we follow... Oh hey, look, there's a guy. Oops. Alright, let's kill that guy. Or maybe it's not here? Oh, this is the exit, isn't it? This is where you come out. I just want to try and find the maze for you. Just because there was a maze in the book. But I don't know if this is the maze. Why are there so many trolls? You. Where was the other door? Oh, here, right. So this door leads us to... this doesn't seem right. Oh crap. Oh, I just messed that up. never mind. That door leads us to... Are those? Those are alive. I think I'm in the wrong place. This doesn't feel like the maze. Unless... no? Let me try and figure out where I'm going with this. Oh, somebody put a bedroll here. But they've been dead for a while. Wait a minute. There's a bedroll here. So it's, I mean, I think it means that other people have been using the ruins for other purposes. Like, you know, like stuff like that. And now can be lab. I think it's supposed to mean that other people have been in here recently and have been using the space for other purposes. Can't really tell what's going on though. I also think I'm in the wrong place, actually. This is not the maze, is it? What the? Sometimes they sidestep you magically. Like they just kind of teleport out of the way of your arrows. That's the other end. That's the other end of the tunnel. I'm in the wrong place. Okay, this is not Labyrinthian. This is not the labyrinth. I thought this was the labyrinth. Where is the labyrinth then? Huh. I swear... I mean, I'm pretty sure the giant door is in the labyrinth. Even though you would assume that it is. Was there another door? Not up here. What am I missing? Is the labyrinth back here? I can't remember where the labyrinth is. And there's really no indication either. Like there's no signage, there's no clear pathways, there's no... I don't know where I am. I don't know where I am. Nope. It's not this thing. But then the only thing left is the giant door, which I'm pretty sure it's not the giant door. Huh. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I shouldn't be looking anyway. Let me just check over here. It's not... Nope, it's not any of this stuff. The giant door? Should I go in the giant door? I'm sure it's not the giant door though. I'm so lost. No, I'm 100% sure it's not the giant door. Ah, crap. Anyway, I can't find it. Somewhere around here there's a maze. I can't remember where it is. Oops. Is it through here? Maybe it's down here. Oh, wait a minute. It's down here. Alright, found it. There you go. Shelador's maze. Yes. So the actual maze... There's no... I can't. Okay. I mean, it's pretty well hidden. The architecture... This is still the old Nordic. So this is a little bit strange. Right? Remember that... Suppose... Oh, wait. Why is the rendering distance so close? Wait a minute, why is that rendering distance so close? Oh, is this correct or is this not correct? So this is the old Nordic stuff. Apparently Shelador built this at a later time, and it actually is correct. Look at it. So see how these blocks of stones, are significantly smaller than these blocks of stones, even though they look superficially the same. This is small stone construction, whereas that is big stone construction. So inside this giant room that the ancient Nords have built, Shalador has built himself a maze using a different construction technology. Look at that. So this is the big stone, this is the small stone. Like the big stone is at least twice as big as the small stone. So this is, wow, hey, look at that. It's architecturally correct. I'm so impressed. Even though, I mean, superficially you look at it, oh, it's grey stone. More grey stone. Kind of the same. No, it's significantly smaller. They're smaller stone pieces, look at that. Architecturally correct. Oh, I haven't done this yet. Oh. Oh, really? Look. So, I don't remember a lot of this stuff because I haven't done this maze yet. I've played through this game like 3 or 4 times, and sometimes I forget what things I've done in which playthrough. So apparently in this playthrough I haven't actually been here before. I should remember that. Alright, so this is the maze. And I mean it's kind of ugly, to be honest. Like, looking at it like this, it's kind of ugly. It's just kind of grey stone. Let me get up high so we can look down at it. And like this is the clue, like there's a note here and then there's 4 staffs. Oh, they're floating in the air, cool. And you use the staff to solve the puzzle. I'm not gonna do it here. Let me run up here instead, and we can see the maze from above, and it's amazing. Look at that. Wait a minute. Can I not get up further? Hold on. How do I climb up? No, I can't. Wait a minute. Can't I get over there? I can, right? So if I come through here, well, okay, we kind of. So that's the maze from above, and from here you can see it's darker. So it's kind of the same material in the sense that it's the same grey stone, because presumably the stone is just found in the mountains here. But the construction technology is different because there's the cyclopean walls, there's a giant blocks of stone, and then there's the much smaller blocks of stone that's been used to construct this maze. And also, I mean, just kind of structurally, it's much more intricate, right? Like the walls are thinner, the structure is kind of more detailed and more intricate than this big stuff. So you can kind of see that there's a different construction technology, even if they use the same material, right? Right? You see that? Cool, right? There's a wall here trying to prevent me from getting to the other side of it. Let me try and sneak past. Alright, good. Let me sneak past that so we can get a closer look at the labyrinth. Look at that. Look at that. It's all just grey and you can't really see anything. Never mind. Anyway, we come up here though. And there's the maze. Maybe it's not as impressive as you might imagine. It's mostly grey. I do wish there was a little bit more color in here, to be honest. Everything is really grey. Even the sky is grey. Alright, let's go back outside. So this is old Nordic architecture. And there's one more place we want to go. Can I? No, I can't. Alright, fine. So let me go back outside. Wait a minute. Is this okay? This is outside. And the last place we're gonna go is High Hrothgar. High Hrothgar. I think this is also, actually I haven't double checked, maybe I'm wrong. High Hrothgar is at the top of the Throat of the World. The Throat of the World being the tallest mountain in Skyrim. And it's always snowing, man. It's always snowing. Can we have it not snow for a few days? Let me just wait 24 hours. So, in terms of the story, oh, it stopped snowing. Wait, it stopped snowing. Oh no, it hasn't, never mind, it hasn't stopped snowing. According to the story, High Hrothgar is where the tongues. So the Nords have a special kind of shouting magic, which they learn from the dragons. The dragons also have a shouting magic, which is kind of loud and shouty, of course. And so the tongues live at the top of the mountain to meditate and practice their shouting. It's still snowing. To meditate and practice their shouting, and they remove themselves from the rest of the world because their shouting is dangerous, and so they come up here and try to be quiet. And so this is like it's an old building, somewhat connected to the dragons, and I believe it should be in the old Nordic / dragon cult style of architecture as well. But it's of course still snowing. Never mind. It's always snowing. Oh, the path up here is somewhat interesting too. Like you have to kind of climb a giant mountain to get up here. And along the way there's these little shrine things. And you might find dragon motifs in the little shrine things. And of course there's Talos. And of course there's dragons. So yeah, I won't show you the path, but at the end of the path there's this. So it's, I mean, if you look at it, it's kind of reminiscent of Windhelm, right? Like the dark stone, and just the really kind of brutal architecture. Although, is it giant blocks of stone? Let me just get up closer to it and see if it's giant blocks of stone. Oh, it's not really, is it? I mean, the staircases are pretty small blocks of stone. These are moderately sized blocks of stone. No, well, it's not quite as big as in the old. So it's not actually ancient Nord architecture. Well, I mean, there's like different levels of ancient, right? So according to the story, there was a dragon cult where there were actual dragons, and the people who built this place, I believe, were significantly later. Were like at least several centuries later, maybe like over 1,000 years later. But they were Nords, and they were slightly less ancient Nords, I suppose you can call them. So the architecture is like, I guess, like it's in between. Maybe it's around. No, it's later than Windhelm, because Windhelm, although maybe not. So the city of Windhelm is old, but the city walls of Windhelm and the actual structure of Windhelm, we're not quite sure how old that is. It might not be as old as the city itself. So I think architecturally, the stuff in the burrows and the tombs is the oldest. So Labyrinthian style is the oldest, and then next I think is not Markarth, it's Windhelm, and then next I think is High Hrothgar, and then next is the new stuff. The new stuff like Whiterun and all the new architecture. So I think this is relatively new. I think that's correct. I might be wrong in terms of the specifics, but basically, like we have looking at different periods in Nordic architecture is what we're looking at. Well, like in-game Nordic architecture, not real-world Nordic architecture. So we're looking at different periods, and so the sizes of the stones are smaller. This is like, although I mean it's still kind of big, but not quite as big as the stones in Labyrinthian, right? And the carvings are more distinct, so it kind of indicates that it's newer. And the dragon motifs are also more complex. So this, I think, is meant to be a dragon, or is it a person? A dragon? I think this is meant to be a dragon. I think these are all meant to be dragons. But the motifs are much more complicated. So the motifs are more complex, less primitive. The stones are slightly smaller. And also it's better maintained, or at least it hasn't weathered as much. That's a person. Okay, that's a person. That's a face, right? And then that's, I suppose, It's like a half dragon. I can't tell what that's meant to be. So if we come inside, again, I think that's like a dragon. I'm not sure if that's a dragon or not. Or is that two faces? Is that two faces facing each other? I honestly can't tell what half these motifs are. Is that a dragon? I don't know. I don't know what these symbols are. So these are the tongues. So they're kind of sitting here meditating on shouting. And again, the architecture, you know, it's yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's a little bit like halfway between Labyrinthian and Windhelm, isn't it? It's better maintained than Windhelm, though. So it's big blocks of stone, but not as big as Labyrinthian, right? And it's pretty blocky, pretty heavy, and pretty solid, and also kind of sharp too. So the style is like it's related, but also a little bit different. Very interesting, and also very dark, very black, very grey. And like you see the high contrast lighting, which doesn't really make sense because I don't know where this light is coming from. This light here, I don't know where the light is actually coming from. But there's a lot of like high contrast lighting in here, which emphasizes the austerity, right, of the spaces. You know, I see the light shafts coming in. So high contrast and everything's kind of cold and silent and solid. Very austere and awesome. Pretty cool, right? Man, look at this. And they sleep on stone beds. That's a different type. So they have unique bed types for the tongues. Is that a dragon? I honestly can't read these motifs. Is that two faces facing each other, or is that a dragon? I can't tell. The furniture is some of this furniture is just kind of the cheap stuff. So they're rough and not fancy. They're skylights. That's kind of cool though. Like, you see how they manipulate the light? Well, the idea is that the architecture manipulates the light. So it's indirect lighting, but it's kind of bouncing the sunlight through the light well down here like this. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's also kind of modern Nordic, like modern Scandinavian in some ways. Just like it's very like the architecture. It's very cold and very quiet, if that makes sense. I mean, how can a building be cold and quiet? Well, it can be cold, but also like it's I mean, there's a lot of decoration, but it's also very abstract and very clean and very minimalist in a way. And you know, with minimalist that's what we mean when we say a building is quiet. It means that there's not much visual noise, right? So there's kind of hallways, and it's also very modular too. Like you can see the rhythms, like you see like columns. So everything has a rhythm to it, and so everything is steady when there's a steady rhythm like that. So the fact that there's evenly spaced columns and elements like this means that, you know, it's almost like, you know, the building, as you step through the building, there's a certain pattern in the walls that you follow. So everything is quite steady, if that makes sense. And this is a meeting room with distinctive furniture, stone chairs and stone tables with a fire in the middle. Surprisingly geometric. So this is the thing. The dwarves, I'm jumping back a little bit. The dwarves were meant to be people who believed in logic and engineering and mathematics, but their architecture is not as geometric as you might imagine. And especially the layout of the city of Markarth, there's nothing geometric about the layout of Markarth. So I'm just reminded of this when I look at this. Like, this is highly geometric. Like, this is like a pyramid, and like all these kind of triangles and rectangles and things like that. So this is highly geometric, although maybe not mathematically geometric, more like artistically geometric. I'm just thinking like the dwarven architecture in this game is not very mathematically geometric, which is kind of weird considering who the dwarves are supposed to be. Anyway, that's a tangent. Let's go back to this. And so like hallways with regularly spaced windows. Oh crap! I'm just getting killed by a jar. So hallways with regularly spaced windows and just kind of long corridors with light on one side. It's very minimalist and also very modernist in a way, which is strange, given that it's supposed to be an ancient Nord building. But it's very abstract and very what's the word for it? Almost kind of existentialist. it's like, you know, kind of highlights the rhythm and the, you know, it's just abstract and very quiet, very calm and very quiet sort of architecture. This is kind of cool. I don't know what else is there to say about it. I'm not sure if I can read much into the culture though. I mean these are monks. Like, these are monks who spend all day meditating, and so, you know, in the fact that the architecture is very rhythmic and very quiet, of course suits the fact that these are a bunch of monks who live there and they meditate all day. And so the rhythm and all that stuff, it goes along with the meditation and the silence, right? And, you know, like the general lack of decoration. Although there's, you know, there's patterns, but even the decorations are, you know, they almost disappear into the walls, right? So it's not loud, it's not colorful. Everything's kind of grey, and, you know, the greybeards themselves are also very grey. They have grey beards, and they have grey cloaks, and so there's not a lot of color as well. So the building suits the people. The building suits the people, and the people have a certain philosophy and a certain kind of lifestyle. I don't want to talk too much about the philosophy because spoilers. But yeah, they live a quiet life because they don't want to shout. Every time they talk, they can't help but shout, and then they kind of. Actually, I think I can do it. Let me just interrupt one of these guys and see what they do.
No fucking.
Yeah, so that happens. So whenever, because their tongues, so their voice magic is very powerful. So every time they talk, like the earth shakes because their voice magic is so powerful, and so they spend all their lives talking as little as possible because they don't want to destroy everything.
We are all in your debt, Dragonborn.
Apparently, except this guy.
Sky.
Except this guy.
No fucking.
Yeah, so like he says Dovahkiin, and then the whole building shakes. So they're quiet because their voices are so powerful that they can't talk very much, otherwise they'll destroy the whole building. So that's why they're quiet. And also, I guess that's why the architecture is so solid and rocky, because it shakes all the time. Because every time they whisper something, the whole thing shakes. And so if the building wasn't solid enough, it would just fall down on them. So they have to make sure the building is strong enough to resist their voices. So there's that as well. And I guess that's it. I mean, I don't have too much else to say. I mean, on the one hand, it's very abstract, but on the other hand, it's still very interesting because there's all sorts of shapes going on. And I guess the key to that is they divide the shapes into small bits. So there's like one module there, and then a gap, and then a module there, and then a gap, and then the main portal, and then the gap and the module, and the gap and the module. So it repeats. So it's like a lot of repeating elements. But the fact that there's so many kind of it's so rhythmic, right? So it's kind of like one thing and one and a two and a one and a two and a one and two. Oh, one of these guys are shouting again. So there's a certain rhythm to it. So even though, you know, the details are very sparse and the spaces are relatively, like the layout is relatively simple, but by using a lot of kind of small modules repeating over and over again, it creates a certain rhythm to it, and so it doesn't look just like like it's not dumb, right? It's not just a rectangle because there's a lot of detail to it, but the space itself is very simple because, you know, they're monks and they're living simple lives, and so the spaces are also simple. It's like a corridor, and then there's like a room, like a bed, a living space on one side, and then like a meeting hall on the other side, and that's like the whole space. So it's like a, you know, the layout is very simple, the plan is simple, and they achieve interest and variety by having like these kind of modules and having repeating modules like this. So there's a kind of a lot of in and out and a lot of movement. You know, like it sticks out and then goes back in, and it sticks out and goes back in, and then inside each one is like a window. So there's a lot of kind of variety in the details, but with a very simple layout. So that's cool. And also there's a tower. There's a guy on top of the tower shouting, by the way. I'm not sure why the stone down here is cracked, but then up there is smooth. Not sure why that is. Oh, can I not go up there? I can, right? Hold on. The door just leads you straight to the top, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Alright, so we magically appear at the top. Even though there's no space for a staircase here. That's cheating. So yeah, so there's the building. There's High Hrothgar, and it's literally just that. Like the plan is not complicated. But cool. So it's like a monastery. It literally is like a monastery. This is cheating. Look at this. Look, let me just go back down. The door. Come on. Come on, you can see that. Look, you can see it. Unless it's a ladder. Unless it's just a vertical ladder. Look. There's the door. There's nothing behind the door. Right? No, yeah, look. There's the door. That's the door. And there's literally nothing behind the door. The door is there, and the door is there. You can't fit a staircase through there. That's cheating. What the... What, there's a pole? There's a fireman's pole right there, you just slide down? Anyway. So the tower is... Spaces, man. They couldn't figure out how to fit the staircase in the tower, and they just cheated. Alright, so that's the end of our video for the old Nordic architecture. I think it's kind of interesting. Maybe it will be more interesting if I actually was clear about the timeline and if I have dates for these buildings, but I'm not going to do that. If you want to look into that, I guess you can look it up. There are like timelines and histories for the Elder Scrolls lore. But we can see like different periods in Nordic architecture, in the Nord architecture, in the game. And we can see how it's evolved from, you know, the old dragon cult of really giant blocks of stone into, you know, what we see in Windhelm, which is kind of slightly smaller bits of stone, but still very kind of dark and massive and imposing. And then here we have even smaller bits of stone, and it's kind of more detailed and less imposing. So over time, we can kind of see how the architecture has evolved for the old Nords, which is cool. I like it. I like it. It seems to, it suggests to me that the people designing the game are aware of this stuff, and they're deliberately kind of designing this stuff to follow a certain logic, and you can kind of see that, you can kind of sense that there's a logic there. All right. So I'm going to end this video here. In the next video, we're going to look at some Dwemer architecture. We've already seen Markarth, which is supposed to be a Dwemer city, but it's not really a Dwemer city. So we're going to go into an actual Dwemer ruin, walk through it, and we'll see what happens there. I'll see you in the next video.